So I don't know if you guys heard about it. Super excited. There's going to be a black, lesbian, disabled, trans James Bond coming up. Super stoked. I actually don't think, no, that's not real. That's a joke. But I mean, how far away are we? I'm thinking mostly here about this whole Buzz Lightyear controversy. But I know everybody says like, well, the movie's failing because there's two ladies kissing, right? And my feeling is, that might be part of it. But the movie's probably failing because it sucks. Like, we do not need a Buzz Lightyear movie. It shouldn't have existed. Its connection to the original IP is completely tenuous. And all Hollywood can do now is just scrape more and more from the bottom of these barrels, these completely empty intellectual properties that, well, look, we loved them once. I loved Star Wars. I loved Toy Story when it came out. All these things are great. Star Trek even, but why is it that all they can do is not new stories, not new ideas, just now there's a lesbian, right? Why do all they have to offer you is like, he's brown now. And these things aren't actually stories. They're not actually art. They're just cheap substitutes for telling good narratives. Why is it that Hollywood can't do that? Well, it's because they've essentially been chasing reality out of the door for the past 50 years. Day after day, they tell you each new thing that is simply true about the world is bad. It's bad that there are men and women. It's bad that men like certain things and women like certain things. It's bad that men find women attractive. It's awful that women find men attractive. We have to have a girl boss who fights with her fists, and Lara Croft can't be sexy. She has to be like a fighter. And, they ruin everything with this stuff because what does art exist to do? It exists to portray reality, to create what Aristotle called a mimesis. That is a reproduction or a representation of true things about human life, men and women in action. That's all art's about. That's what fairy tales are about. That's why we come back to the movies again and again, is to see the heart of our experience represented. You can't do that any other way. It's a gorgeous gift that was given to us. You can't talk to somebody about falling in love without using metaphor, without using imagery. You can't talk to somebody about valor and courage without telling them a story. This stuff doesn't boil down to mathematical equations. It doesn't boil down to science. It doesn't boil down to any of the kind of neat boxes that the wokesters want to put us in. Well, this demographic, this gender, this sexuality, whatever. None of that captures the fullness of human life because there is an irreducible infinity of experience in the heart of every human being. There's a hymn that says, evermore from his store, from God's store, new worlds rise up to adore. Every human being is a new world made anew to see things just that little bit differently and to reduce that to the color of somebody's skin, to the kind of sex they like to have, is a complete and total cop-out. And if your political program is basically founded upon the idea that reality is evil, reality is racist, reality is offensive, reality is sexist, then what are you going to do? All you're going to be able to do is just take old stories that were once great, hollow them out and wear them like a skin suit, like some kind of zombie, right? Oh, it's Buzz Lightyear. Oh, it's Star Wars. No, it's not. It's some weird facsimile, some simulacrum you made of a time when there were once great storytellers, once people making great art. And to me, I have to tell you, I know some people will disagree with me about this, but the pinnacle of all of this is the multiverse. Because, once they finished the series of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that culminated in Endgame. And they were looking around, they had basically finished telling their story, but they couldn't let go of this IP because it's not like they could make anything new, right? So they said, what are we going to do? Well, I guess there's a million different universes. And in this universe, Spider-Man is black, right? Well, okay, fine. I mean, maybe it's a good movie, maybe it's not, right? But the point of just taking this IP and making it all about branching out into all these different worlds, infinite possibilities, anything could happen, anything could occur. And what's the only thing they can think to do? They can just change around the gender and the sexuality of the superheroes in the movie, right? And this becomes a purely cynical marketing ploy. I mean, everybody has always been used to a TV show where the actress gets pregnant and now we have to invent a storyline for why she disappears for 9 months or whatever. We all have a little bit of that in our past. All American commercial art has some of that. Pop art does this. But that's all it is now, because the multiverse takes away every possible consequence, right? If somebody dies, you can bring him back to life in another universe. If somebody's not the right skin tone, you can invent a universe where they are the right skin tone, right? And so the only thing dictating what these stories look like now is the money and the desire for power and the desire for ideological purity on the part of the people making the movies. And I'm sorry, but that's just not interesting to me. That's not something that I want to pay money for. I did, in fact, cancel my Disney Plus subscription because honestly, leave alone the fact that the people that make this stuff hate me and hate my politics. But I just feel condescended to. I feel insulted by the idea that I'm supposed to accept this thin gruel as if it were true art. Art's not about that. Art's about human reality. And if your politics makes it impossible for you to affirm and accept the full scope of humanity, good, bad, ugly, right? All the stuff that somebody like Shakespeare puts on the stage, right? But I did an episode on Macbeth, and I said, if Macbeth were a modern movie, conservatives might be a little bit worried about sending their kids to it. It's got a lot of gore. It's got a lot of adult themes. But why is it not cheapening? Why does that not fall short of everything that we long for art to be? Well, because it's a complete vision of the human world that takes place within a moral universe where actions have consequences, and those consequences are not just physical, but spiritual. We are rational animals, which means there are not just physical realities about us. We don't just have sex and run around and eat and get pleasure, right? We also have souls. And art that portrays the world that way is inevitably going to bump up against any kind of political dogmatism that denies the full truth of what humanity is. Leftism is effectively based now on that very denial. That's why they can't make any good movies. If you want to see more about this and hear more about it, I did an episode called Ruining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm really not trying to spoil anybody's fun, as I say on that episode, but hopefully it'll get you thinking about some of the deeper philosophical strains behind this, because multiverse theory goes way back into antiquity with Epicurus and Lucretius. And, if you want to know more about that, more about the history of these ideas and how they've played out in the past and how they're playing out now to help you understand the challenges of our modern day in a deeper way, informed by ancient truths, go check out Young Heretics wherever you get podcasts or at youngheretics.com.